12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week for nearly 10 years, the life of a former chess champion was consumed by chess, and by 1972, the average top 1% chess player didn't stand a chance. Just think about that. The top 1%, the so-called cream of the crop, best worldwide chess players stood absolutely zero chance against the American Grandmaster. The concept of excellence, the top 1% of the top 1%, holds true in almost all competitive endeavors. Many people believe people's success is linear, but evidence shows it's more of an exponential curve. One of my favorite examples is typing, specifically the Monkeytype speed test graph. If you've hovered around the internet for some time, you've probably heard that around 45 words per minute is the average typing speed. This is probably higher today and is obviously higher in this graph, as Monkeytype is a community full of competitive typers. The most populated speeds are 60 through 79, and as we continue up the levels, there are fewer and fewer people. There are about 240,000 users in this list, so the top 1% starts at about the 150 to 159 words per minute mark. If we stopped here, it would look pretty normally distributed, but oh no, it doesn't stop here. It keeps going, and going. And it's only after 130 words per minute after the 150 words per minute mark do we finally reach the top, where there's only one person at this level. The top 1% of the top 1% is almost double the words per minute of the normal top 1%. Not many skill-related things can be measured by numbers, but when they are, it shows the absolute difference in levels between the top 1% and the top 0.01%. This graph perfectly sums up my point, and to be honest, the first time I saw this graph, I actually cried a little because of how beautiful it shows the competition at the top. Let's start at the beginning. If you know nothing and just want to become somewhat decent or competent enough, then as John Kaufman found, if you spend about 20 dedicated hours at it, you can reach this level. This level holds the most bang for your buck if you want to get the most out of your time. If you start from knowing nothing in the world of typing and spend about 20 solid hours practicing, it's reasonable to say that you can get about to 45 words per minute. But immediately after that, progress starts to slow, and this is the point that most people get stuck in mediocrity. It might get to a point where it feels like you're not progressing nearly as much as you should from all the hard work and dedication spent on your craft. This will continue to get worse the further you progress. This is known as the power law of practice, which is a well-researched topic. Once you feel like you can't progress any further, and when you've spent the most time for having the least result, this is roughly where you reach the top 1%. You could say we are about this point on the Monkeytype graph. This is where most people stop because there's no point in achieving anything more since it would take an absurd amount of effort, which is exactly what the top 0.01% of people do. How do you think the level of skill increases so rapidly after this point? It's almost as if the exponential graph flips on itself and the results are magnified. Sure, this could be true to some degree, especially based on the law of attraction, which I talked about in the secret to pen tuning video, but in reality, the people at the top just spend an insane amount of time on their craft. And the graph looks something like this. If we look at time as being experience, then we can just see how dominant the top 0.01% is to the rest of the population. The people at the top are dedicating their entire lives to their craft, and they're competing with other people that are doing the same. Why is it this way? Talking from personal experience, being in the top 1% shows being the best as in sight. Before being in the top 1%, being the best is widely unimaginable, so you don't have that achievable goal of being the best. But when you get past that 1% mark, being the best actually seems achievable. This fuels your incentive to work even harder and dedicate more of your life to getting to that top position in whatever you're doing. But in that top 1%, there are some people with similar motives, which makes it even harder. To get to the top, you need to compete with the best, but when you are the best, you can't compete with anyone but yourself. In other words, we must destroy everyone to get to the top. But when we're there, we can't destroy anyone but ourselves.